Hi, I'm Kelly Harris from Enchanted Spa. One of the things that we find all the time in the industry is people are struggling to use one of the simplest tools that we have, our iPads, and they're not using them to their full potential. So here's some tips and tricks for you. The trick to getting a nicely secured iPad is to not actually stick the eyelashes down in the first place. So what we don't want to do is place the pad perfectly, because when she closes her eye, it's all going to get scrunched in. So the best way to do it with the help of your client is to first of all hover the pad where we want it so it doesn't come into contact with that waterline. So we're going to look up over the shoulder. I'm going to place my ring finger here and just pull down so that I can get right in between the inner, upper and lower. Hold it in the place of where you actually want it to be. You're not placing it on the skin, you're just holding it above the lashes, making sure it's not coming into contact with that waterline, and then we're going to ask the client to gently close. As she closes her eye, we then perfectly place the iPad. Now, if we open this eye up, what's going to happen is, as she opens it, the pad's going to move and the lashes are going to flip out again. So to stop that happening, we're going to ask her to help us. So you want your client to actually hold her eyelids shut without touching the lashes, because we've already cleaned them and we don't want to get any oil from the fingers on there. So we're going to ask Emily to raise her hand up and just place her fingers here. This means that as we open this eye, this one's going to stay shut. So Emily, now if you could open this eye and look up over my right shoulder. As she's holding that eye down, we are doing exactly the same on this side, and gently close. And then as she closes, it fits perfectly into place. When you are placing the pad, you want to make sure that it sits nicely coming up onto the nose. If you place it and it's too close to the nose, open up for me, and you use the very end of the pad to hold down those inner lashes and then bring it round and close, it's going to push the lashes up into the eye as well, so that when you come to lash the inner corner, you're not going to be able to get there. You need them to be sat nice and flush. Same as if you have too much of the pad up over the nose. And if you've got air in here, close your eye for me, so you're not going to be able to get that snug fit. When you're placing it, open up. We want to make sure that there is no air under here. Close your eye, because otherwise we're going to get sagging of the pad. We want to make sure that it's nice and smooth and snugly fitting along that lower lash line. The iPads that you buy, you can't just use one iPad on everyone. They're not a one size fits all. With the iPads that we use, we need to customize them to fit the client's eyes. Because some people's eyes are going to be quite straight at the bottom, some are quite round, some have got really high cheekbones. We can cut the pad at the base in case the cheekbones are quite high so that it fits nice and snug. We can cut the end off so that it can really get in on the inners, and we can cut the other end so that it fits on the outer nicely as well. Now you can see here, the pad is lifting slightly. If it's lifting slightly, we're going to get air underneath it. So a trick for this is to actually cut the pad. So for clients who have high cheekbones, so by cutting this off, we're going to get a really secure, snug fit. Or you can use two pads. So we're going to come in and place this on this side and hold the outer lashes down. Then we're going to come to the inner eye and gently close for me, and we're going to place that nice and snug. So there are no lashes that aren't covered by the iPads. It's nice and hygienic. We haven't used the tape, so there's no lint or anything going towards the eyeball, and we've got a nice, securely snug fit iPad. The main reason that we absolutely hate any tape being near the eye is because the lint that attracts to the side of the tape. Now you can see that by this just sitting in a drawer or in a box, or even if it sits in a case like this that is specifically to house the tape, it will always attract the lint and dust that is floating around in the air. So if there is any dust and dirt and lint here, that is going to come into contact with the waterline. Also, if there is lint here, what do we know? Lint reacts with the cyanoacrylate inside our adhesive, so the chance of an exothermic burn are huge when you put any type of tape near the eye. The other thing with tape is it's completely straight. So if you're trying to get this to fit around the eye, it doesn't have the natural curve of the iPad. Now, even though we can cut the pads in different areas to make it fit properly, if you do cut the tape, it's always quite a rough edge. So if it does come into contact with the eye, it's always a bit harder. Where it's more tackier, it can actually grab hold of the skin so that when they close their eye, the skin moves, especially if the skin is quite saggy and it starts to crumple up. Whereas with the iPad, whenever it's put on, it's nice and smooth and it actually holds the skin in place. If you do like to use tape over the top of your pad because you've got a couple of little lashes that are poking up still, if you cut the edge off a pad and use that, it's so much more hygienic and you're introducing no lint into the eye area. So if there are any lashes that aren't actually covered like these ones on the outer eye, we can use that little piece of pad and close and go in to cover them over to make sure that, again, they're nice and secured. If we place the pad and then ask her to close her eye, it's going to go into the eye more, which means it's going to touch the waterline. This has just been sat in a kidney dish. You can see that all the gel has completely swollen and you can see how thick the pad has gone. Now, if you can see this line along the edge, this is what would then be swelling and going into the client's eye and touching the eyeball. As it then rubs, you're going to get a bruise on the eyeball, which some people call pad burn. Your client isn't going to feel it as the service is happening, but she is going to feel it when she opens her eyes and the oxygen comes into contact with the eyeball again. The redness can last up to a week and they really need to go and see a pharmacist to get some eye drops to rehydrate the eye. So if your client sends you a picture the day after you've done her lashes and there is a red mark on her eye, first thing, she needs to seek medical advice. Second thing, you need to change how you're putting those pads on. If your client has had a stimulant before she comes in, if she's had a coffee, a Red Bull, an energy drink, or if she's on antidepressants or anything like Duramine, any stimulants at all can make the eyes start to move. So if your client comes in and her eyes are twitching, some people recommend to have a $2 coin and to tape it on top of the eye. We find this is quite heavy on the eyeball and it's really unhygienic. What we teach our students to do is to actually use another pair of pads. Because they're single use and they come in the packet, they're so much more hygienic. So if you've got a client with this issue, take another pad and place it over the top of the eye. What we're actually doing is putting that weight onto the eye so that it will stop it from moving. We haven't got the heavy weight of the coin on there and it's not dirty. When you're about 50% through your set, to make sure that you lash every single lash and get that 100% coverage, here's a nice little trick to use your pads. So we're going to open it up, get the pads right on the tips of those lash extensions. We're trying to see how many natural lashes are left and we're going to get to those anagen lashes. So we're going to place the pad here right on the very end of the extensions and then we're just going to lift it up and fold it back. As you can see, all of that lower layer has popped out so that we're going to lash those. If you don't lash the lower layer, then when the client opens their eyes, it can look a little bit dull, like it's not full enough. So we want to make sure that we lash all of those to really give it that fullness. And this is the way that you do it. Some people use tape to do this, but there's reasons why we don't like the tape. And the pads, again, they're more hygienic, but also when you peel it off, you're not going to take any of those extensions because the adhesive isn't too tacky. Sometimes when you take it off with tape, you can pull the extensions as well. Another really handy trick that you can do with the iPads, if you've placed an extension on and it's just not sitting properly or the fan is closed or something's happening and you need to remove that one eyelash, if you put remover across all of this, it's going to make the whole set come off. So we can actually use the pad for an isolated removal. So what we can do is lift up the extension we want to remove, place the pad over the rest, and here we have an isolated lash. Then we can put a little bit of remover gel on here. So instead of banana peeling, if there's going to be any damage to the integrity of that lash, We can isolate it this way, put a little bit of remover on with the micro brush, and then it will just gently slip away. Using your micro brushes, then put a little bit of cleanser on the base of the lash, put a little bit of saline, move this away, and she's ready to be relashed. So with the legal side, are your iPads actually illegal? And how can they be illegal? Well, some iPads contain an ingredient called MI. It's this long word here, and I've got no idea how to actually say it. The problem that we find in our industry is that a lot of people will do a training course and then feel like they can get stock cheaper. So they see it on eBay and they think, okay, well, you send 10 pairs of iPads for $13. I can get 10 pairs for $3.50 from eBay. Yes, you probably can, but I'm telling you now, they will probably have the illegal ingredients in there. And there's another ingredient that is actually a derivative of shellfish that they put into the cheaper iPads. If you do buy those pads and you use them on your client, how many people are actually allergic to shellfish? The chance of a reaction are huge. You may think that they're having a reaction to the cyanoacrylate that we use inside the adhesive, but it's not. It's actually chemicals that are inside these pads. So these are our two iPads. We have a shiny one and then we have a matte one. It all comes down to personal preference. I prefer the matte ones simply because anything light reflective can start off a migraine for me. So if you do find that you're sensitive to lights or you get headaches easily, then definitely go for the matte one. The other reason I like our matte iPads are that they are already pre-cut. So you can see we already have little tears in here, so that as you're placing it on the eye, it's already there and pre-cut so that you can stretch it around to fit nicer. If you'd like to try some free samples of our iPads, just let us know. You can try the shiny, you can try the matte, or try a couple of each. Just give us an email at reception@enchantedspa.com.au and we'll get them sent out for you. If you'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the legal side of things on the iPads, then just jump over to our blog and like and subscribe this channel so we can give you as much information as we can for free.